I'm here with military election forecasting, and today I'm going to be talking about the future of America's politics and America's 2024 election upcoming. This is my first video on this concurrent channel, so I'm just going to be diving directly into this. So, when looking at the states that are very safe for their respective parties, you have Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia, as well as Maine's 1st Congressional District. And for the Republican Party, you have Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, all of Nebraska's districts except the 2nd District, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. Um, so, first thing I want to talk about is, as of recently, you had Joe Biden announce his reelection yesterday, I believe, and Donald Trump announced his in November of 2022 after the midterm elections. Yes, there are many Republican candidates running for the Republican primary as of now, but it's very unlikely that any of them are going to defeat Donald Trump and, their respective election bid. Donald Trump is destroying all the Republican opposition in current polls, and with his, cult-like following, it's very unlikely for him to end up coming up short in, his primary election bid. And obviously, with Joe Biden being the incumbent president, he has a very unlikely chance of someone actually coming even close to challenging him on the Democratic side. So, obviously, a lot of these states like South Carolina, Mississippi, Missouri, Indiana, Kansas, Utah, Montana, some of these states could realistically be under 15%. Same thing with Oregon, New Jersey, Delaware, no, Delaware, and Connecticut. But it's very unlikely. It's not very unlikely, but regardless, they're very safe for their incumbent parties. So not really something that you're going to spend a lot of time talking about. So other ones are for the Democrats. You have Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia, and these were former swing states and former more competitive states, especially back in the Obama era. But as of currently, they become much more democratic. If you go back to 2016, you'll see that Hillary Clinton only won Virginia by 5 points, and you'll see Joe Biden end up winning Virginia by 10 points. So this is a state that's become a lot more democratic in the last couple election cycles, as well as Colorado. 2016, Colorado goes to Hillary Clinton by 5 points. 2020, it goes to Democrats by 13 points. You go back to the 2022 Senate elections, Democrats win Colorado by 15%. Similar thing in Virginia. You've just seen the states become a lot more democratic in the last couple election cycles. So it's pretty apparent that both of those states are going to end up, being very lockdown states for their respective parties, as well as New Mexico. And for Republicans, you've seen the same thing with Iowa and Ohio. Iowa and Ohio were states that Barack Obama won twice in 2008 and 2012, but Donald Trump won these states convincingly in 2016. You go back to 2016, you see Donald Trump win the state by about 10 points. He won Ohio by about 8 points. You go to 2020, he won Iowa by 8 points and Ohio by 8 points as well. So not really much movement in between the 4 years. You're not going to see a major movement in 4 years as well, so not really too much of change. Very similar thing in some of the other Hillary Clinton states, 2016. You have Minnesota, you have New Hampshire, you have Maine at large, in Nebraska 2nd District. Um, Minnesota is a state where Democrats have not lost since 1972. So they have a 50-year win streak in the state. And with their concurrent victories, they don't realistically have a chance of losing it in 2024, as well as New Hampshire and Maine, obviously. In the Maine 2nd District for Republicans. Um, if you look at, for example, can't really pull up Nebraska's 2nd District, but if you look at Omaha, which is where Nebraska's second district is mainly based off of. You see, Hillary Clinton, she won this principal county, Douglas County, by 2 points, and then Joe Biden ended up winning this county by 11 points. It's a 9 point improvement. Um, and you go to these rural areas in Maine. This is where Maine's second district is. Donald Trump, he really ran up the score in 2016 and 2022 in these very rural, working class areas. That's not really going to change in 2024. So both of those districts are pretty locked down. As well as Alaska. Alaska's obviously become a lot more democratic as time has went on. Donald Trump only won Alaska by 10 points in 2020. He won Alaska by 15 points in 2016. So Joe Biden did improve by 5 points there. With how the state's been shifting, it's very likely that Democrats will make gains in Alaska in 2024, but not to the extent to realistically have a chance of flipping Alaska. So here we come to the most competitive swing states in our country, which are Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. Um, of these competitive swing states, um, having roughly nine, I think there are four that realistically have a clear bias in their respective parties' favor. The first one is for the Republicans, we have Florida. Florida is a state that Barack Obama won in 2008, 2012, but Donald Trump ended up winning in 2016 by a very narrow margin, obviously. Hillary Clinton, she really went up the score in these southern counties in Florida. You have Miami-Dade County. She won this county by about 300,000 votes. Same thing in Broward and Palm Beach. She also did really well in Orlando. Go back to 2020. Florida was one of the only states where Joe Biden did worse than Hillary Clinton in 2020. He really collapsed in Miami-Dade County. He did win his county, but he lost, Donald Trump ended up doing 25 points better there in the largest county in the state of Florida, which really destroyed Joe Biden's chances of winning the state statewide. Um, and obviously, many people expect Joe Biden to improve in these counties a little bit in 2024, but not by anywhere near the margins necessary to win the state of Florida outright. And with, Republicans, victories that you've just seen nonstop since 2016, it's very unlikely that Democrats are going to be able to flip Florida in 2024, which is why I consider Florida a state Republicans can pretty much rely on in the 2024 presidential election. And for Democrats, that state is Nevada. Nevada is a state where Democrats have not lost since 2004. So it'll be about 20 years of Democratic control in the state on the federal level. Um, in 2016, Nevada um, went to Hillary Clinton and it went to Joe Biden by the exact same margin of 2.4%. But if you look, Joe Biden did a little bit worse in Las Vegas than Hillary Clinton, but he did better in other parts of the state, which basically made the state move in a stagnant position. But it's expected that he'll probably end up doing better in the Las Vegas area. You go to 2018, 2022 midterm elections. Democrats only won Clark County by 7 points, which was a very worrisome number. Um, and they were still able to nearly hold on. But it's a really big sign to Republicans because in 2022, Republicans had a much wider, much older electorate, and they still weren't able to win Nevada on the federal level. So in a more high turnout election, with more turnout from Las Vegas and most notably Hispanic and Latino voters, it becomes pretty obvious that Nevada isn't really in reach for Republicans in 2024, the same way Florida isn't really in reach for Democrats in 2024. As long as Democrats get pretty decent turnout in Las Vegas, and even in 2022 they didn't get good turnout in Las Vegas, and they still won Nevada on a statewide level. So with the electors we've seen as of current, it's pretty obvious that I think Democrats are going to hold on in Nevada in 2024, probably win by between 2 to 5%. Another one is Texas. Texas is a state where I believe Republicans can count on the 2024 election, and Republicans have really been falling in their margins in Texas as of late. If you go back to 2012, Mitt Romney won Texas by 16%. And then 2016 comes around, Hillary Clinton only loses Texas by 9%. So a 7 point improvement. mainly because of Democrats continuing to improve in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, the big cities in Texas. And it's been able to drive Texas dramatically to the left. And it's no question that Democrats are going to improve on their margins from 2020. You go flip to 2020, you just look at like Democrats were able to flip Fort Worth, which is one of the last Republican strongholds citywide across the country. It's obvious that Democrats are going to improve in Texas. They're going to probably do better in Houston. They're going to do better in Dallas. They're going to do better in Austin, which they've been doing for the past decade now. But I don't realistically think that it's nowhere near enough to flip Texas. They're going to bring down the margin. Joe Biden only lost Texas by 5 points. Hillary Clinton lost it by 9. They're probably going to bring it down to 2, 3 points. But realistically, Republicans can count on winning Texas 2024. I don't think that um, Democrats realistically have a major chance of being able to flip Texas, in my opinion. I don't think that it's really likely. So when looking at the state, because some of these like Democratic strongholds, like Travis County, which is where Austin is located, um, they're going to keep running up the score here, and it's going to make Texas more Democratic. These suburban counties in Dallas, which are becoming increasingly more Democratic, shifting 12, 14, 15 points to the left in between 2016 and 2020 and between 2012 and 2016. But realistically, they're not really in major threat. Democrats need massive turnout from Hispanic Latino voters while keeping their margins with Black voters in inner cities, and increasing their gains with college educated white voters, which they're going to do in Texas, but not to the extent they would need to do 5% better and make up a 600,000 vote deficit, which is why I don't think Texas is really realistic for the Democrats. Another one I want to add in here is Michigan. Michigan is a state Donald Trump was nearly able to win in 2016, but since Donald Trump's victory in 2016 in Michigan, Republicans have lost every single election statewide in Michigan. Um, and if you go back to 2016, it makes a lot of sense. Hillary Clinton collapsed in Michigan. Like she had a meltdown in terms of everywhere she did bad with the white working class voters. She did horrible, which was expected. She did not do well with white rural voters. And she really struggled to get Black voters out in the Detroit area, which ended up making her lose Michigan by 10,000 votes. In 2020, um, Democrats won Michigan back by a somewhat convincing margin. And in the 2000, if you look at the 2016, the 2022 midterm elections, going to the governor's side, you'll see that Democrats, for example, they really did not really have the best time they wanted in some of these counties for the Republicans, for example. Uh, when you actually look at it, it makes sense. You'll see that looking at Hillary Clinton, she only got 519,000 votes in Wayne County, which on a grand scale sounds like a lot, but it's not really a lot. She only won Wayne County by about 290,000 votes. You go to 2020, Joe Biden wins Wayne County by well over 300,000 votes. So as long as Democrats can win Wayne County by 300,000 votes, Republicans don't have a chance of making up that deficit in the other parts of Michigan. Democrats have also, really made some gains in Kent County, a lot of these suburban counties across the state. And as long as Democrats can get a decent amount of Black voters out in the Detroit area, Republicans don't have a realistic chance of winning Michigan on the statewide level. And Republicans really only can win Michigan with turnout being low in the Detroit area. So as long as Democrats can continue that boost. In 2022, Democrats were able to do pretty well in the Detroit area. They did not get the numbers that they got in 2020. And Republicans did not do well nationwide, really, but they did really poorly in the Rust Belt in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But it's also fair to point out the fact that Republicans are going to do much better in 2024 because a lot of these more rural, non-college educated voters are going to vote at a higher rate in a presidential election versus a midterm election. But it's also fair to point out that you're going to see more turnout from, urban Black voters in places like Flint and Detroit. So it's going to cancel each other out. And Republicans are 9 times out of 10 going to come up short in Michigan. So we have Michigan and Nevada for Democrats and Texas and Florida for Republicans. And that puts the map at 247 to 219. And we have the 5 true toss-up states going into 2024. That is Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And these states are states that were the closest in 2020, the closest in 2020, and will likely be the closest in 2024. Arizona and Georgia are 2 states that used to be former Republican strongholds like Texas, but have become increasingly more Democratic, which, makes Texas so worrisome for Republican strategists because Arizona and Georgia were Republican states where Democrats did better and better and better until they ended up flipping the states and taking control. In Texas, you're seeing a similar thing with the margins continuously decreasing. And it's only a matter of time before Texas becomes like Georgia and Arizona, and it becomes, you know, more competitive state, which you've already seen. North Carolina has been a swing state for a very long time, but as of late, you're seeing Democrats really have a big chance winning the state on the federal level, and Republicans keep getting lucky and being able to get the amount of white rural voters, the working class voters in North Carolina they need to overcome Democrats' margins. But just like we talked about in the Rust Belt, Democrats have been winning a lot of times because of Republicans struggling to get their base out. Democrats have really struggled to get good black turnout in North Carolina. And with that, the question is, can Republicans in North Carolina hold on, especially if they're only winning North Carolina by narrow margins with not good amounts of black voters being turned out? So that's another worrisome factor for them. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, as well as Michigan are states that are obviously shifting right, especially over time. When you're seeing urban black voters, mainly in places like Milwaukee, Detroit, Philadelphia, they're leaving these cities and are moving to the South, mainly Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Charlotte, Raleigh, these southern areas. And, that's helping Democrats in the South, but it's hurting them in the Rust Belt. And Democrats have been able to improve with college-educated white voters. They've been able to keep, the state somewhat stagnant. But as of time, with, better working class and rural turnout, you're going to see Democrats, victories start becoming far and few between in these states. You haven't seen it as of now, obviously, but it's, I feel like it's somewhat inevitable. But Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are states Donald Trump was able to win in 2016. And since then, Republicans haven't had too much luck in these states. But Donald Trump is a unique candidate, and he's been able to do so before, and he's been able to, at least get much closer in an election he was expected to lose by a convincing margin. So the question is, does he realistically have a chance at flipping these states back in 2024? That's not the topic of this video. But again, I am Langston here with Military Forecasting Elections. I look forward to seeing you on my next video.